Hello, sir.
Hello there.
Why did you just call our daughter a little name that I won't repeat?
Because she was texting me and she knows how to pick her spots, is what it is. So we asked her, since you and I are internet celebrities,
Mhm.
working hard,
Mhm.
making podcasts, miracles happen.
Mhm.
We asked her to make dinner. Just a HelloFresh. Just do a HelloFresh or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And she, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And then I get, actually, can I just make waffles and bacon? And I say, probably not. That's not.
Oh, did you already say no?
I said, probably not. Mom's going to need a bit more than that. So she kept going and changed it. Well, no, I just want to make a full breakfast thing. That'll be enough for mom. And then I stopped acknowledging her. So that's what she came up and stood here knowing we're too busy. And you're like, yeah, I don't care. Do whatever. Now she gets to make her waffles. So
Well,
you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't undermine me or anything because I wasn't really fighting a hard fight. But
okay.
it's just, I knew exactly what she's doing the second she walked in. So yeah,
Well, I was just trying to figure out
stuff.
because we've got a podcast guest again and I needed to get things going. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. Just thank you. Make dinner.
Yeah.
Goodbye. And then she left happy.
So she won. She won this round.
Okay. Well, I didn't realize she was already engaging with you on this topic, but that would be your job to be assertive to let me know if there was a different outcome.
How did this turn into me getting in trouble?
No. If I was getting in trouble, I would just say forewarning. But it's all good. It's all good. You're not in trouble.
Yeah, and I'm getting waffles. So
So you wanted waffles anyway, probably.
no, but I'm not going to say no to breakfast for dinner. You know where I stand on breakfast. Breakfast is the best meal of the day.
I
Anyway.
love waffles. But she won't make whipped cream. I love whipped cream. Waffles and whipped cream and blueberries are yummy. There.
So what's on tap for today, Doctor?
Well, I have another guest today who actually, Sharon King, lives in Thailand, which is, I love it because I love Southeast Asia very much. But she's going to be talking today with us. She is an international trainer of energy psychology techniques for transforming trauma and living a more joyful, connected, and empowered life. One of her specialties is working with the pre and perinatal birth trauma for both mother and baby. And she's got a whole list of things that she really helps parents with. I mean, I almost want her to come on a couple of times because there's a few things, working with mothers to be. She works with mothers who are experiencing infertility or women who are experiencing infertility, adoption issues, healing the wounds of losing a baby. I mean, there's so many things here, but we'll keep it focused for today. Enjoy. Welcome, Sharon. Thank you so much for coming on our show today.
Thank you for the invitation. I can't wait to get stuck in.
Yes, I'm excited as well. Well, why don't we start by having you introduce yourself to everyone?
Okay, well, my name's Sharon King, and I'm the author of two books, one called Heal Your Birth, Heal Your Life, and the second one I'm a co-author of Return to the Mother World. And I predominantly work with people to help them transform their experience of birth and prepare women for pregnancy, for birth, for being a new parent. So that's my passion in life. I also work with ancestral patterns and life purpose, and also past lives as well. So anything around that really early stages of life,
Amazing.
that's my main focus. And of course, trauma related mainly, healing trauma.
Yeah. So interesting. I wish I had someone like you in my life before I had kids. I know we're going to be talking about teens and just, looking at some of relationships and things like that. So why don't you, it sounds like we need to take a step back, right, from early experiences. So where should we start?
Absolutely. Well, probably a good place to start is conception.
Okay.
Because that's where it all begins.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it all begins. None of us consciously remember our time in utero, or not many people remember their time in utero or remember their birth experience. In fact, most of us don't remember much before about the age of 5 unless something big and traumatic happens in our lives. So we kind of, because we don't remember that time, we kind of think it doesn't count. That we were born and we're just a blank slate, and everything that happens after that is important, but actually it's not. It's not. Right from the start of conception, from that first egg and sperm getting together and that flash of light, when that happens, that for me is when the soul starts connecting with the baby, or with physicality, coming into physicality. So the perceptions of mum and dad are very influential on how that conception experience is for the baby. If mum and dad are, loving each other and planning a baby and welcoming that baby into the world, into the uterus, preparing the uterus, then that baby's going to have that first life experience of being welcomed into the world, of being wanted. All right. But if mum accidentally gets pregnant and she doesn't plan to have a baby, and then she starts thinking about, oh my God, how's this going to affect my life? What's going to, should I keep the baby? Should I not keep the baby? Is it too early for me to be a mum? I'm not sure. Then that is a very different start for that baby, because that baby's coming into a place that it's not sure it's welcome, and it's not sure it's going to be able to stay. So right from the beginning, those two early life experiences start the beginnings of shaping that personality, if you like, a person who he feels very secure, very loved, very wanted, or somebody who's like not really trusting, like, should I be here? Should I not be here? Am I welcome? Am I not welcome? Am I going to get to stay? Am I not going to get to stay? So yeah, it's a very, very important time. And of course, then the next stage is when mum finds out she's pregnant. So the baby's then seen. And again, that can be the great experience of mum going, oh my God, look at this, like, welcome baby, I'm so happy to be here. And another person going, oh, I didn't know I was pregnant. Oh no, and then goes through that thought process. So it's a very rocky time, or can be a very rocky time for a baby. So the more the mother can connect with the baby, chat with the baby, welcome the baby, the more secure and loved the baby's going to feel.
Mm. And what if the baby is very loved, but the mom is freaking out that it's dead, or something's wrong with it, or eating too spicy food, or hurting?
Food issue, yeah.
I was going to get ultrasounds like every week because I was sure something was wrong with the baby.
Okay. So the baby's perception of the world is created through the mother's perception of the world. And the baby doesn't have the ability to separate itself. It doesn't sit in the womb and go, oh, there goes mum again. She's all worried about that, whatever it is that she's just eaten, or whether she's going to be a good parent or not. If you're feeling that fear and anxiety, the baby is feeling the fear and anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's just the baby's experience. The baby can't judge the experience as good or bad. It just is experience anxiety, or it's fear, or it's anger, or it's shock, or it's happiness. It's whatever the mum is feeling, the baby's feeling. If there's been a loss beforehand as well, so say mum's had a miscarriage beforehand, then the baby is going to feel that fear, that anxiety about, oh my God, is this baby going to go to full term? Is the baby going to stay? And what can normally happen is mum will withdraw her love energy for the baby, because she doesn't want to get attached just in case the baby goes. So it can lead to a child feeling anxiety, separation anxiety sometimes as well, because we tend to think about the physical development of the baby, and it will impact the physical development of the baby, because how the brain develops, for instance, is also reliant on how mum's perceptions of the world are. And like, just I can just feel everybody going, what have I done to my child? So I'm just going to add in here, you were doing the best you can with the knowledge and understanding you had at the time, and what you know now, you didn't know back then. So, but generally, it sets up a life pattern, if you like, for the child as well. So do you mind me asking if your child is a little bit sort of anxious and a little bit nervous about things, or is she?
Oh yeah, anxious, ADHD, and I know it's a lot of it because of the stress. Yeah.
All right.
And traumatic birth experience as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Dr. Gabor Mate is a good place to go and get some more information about ADHD and birth-related trauma, because he talks a lot about how I would say our highly busy lifestyle and our highly polluted lifestyle is kind of what's there's a lot of mix, a lot that goes into the development of the baby to become an ADHD anxious child. There's a lot to it nowadays. Just think about the amount of EMF energy the baby has to, get used to this frequency planet now, because we have a whole different frequency to this planet now than we did to begin with, both in the positive, the high frequencies that are coming in, but also in the lower frequencies. So yeah, there's a lot to it, but birth trauma can definitely be a contributing factor to that as well. But the good news is that it can all be transformed. If you do the work, it can be transformed both for mother and for the child as well.
So do we jump in then to the healing, or should we continue on to like the teenage
Absolutely
brain?
up to you. We can carry on talking about brain development if you like. The brain development is actually a really crucial part to understand. So in the first trimester, the reptilian brain is being formed. So for the first 3 months, your reptilian brain is your survival brain. So any experience that happens to the mum in that first 3 months, the only place it can be recorded in the child or affecting the child is the reptilian brain, the development of the reptilian brain. So the first 3 months, if you can stay out of anxiety, that'll be great, because that doesn't shape that reptilian brain to be high alert and high anxiety. The second trimester is when the emotional brain, the limbic system, it's also called, that's when that's being developed. So now if you have something that happens in the second trimester, it has the reptilian brain to influence, and also now the emotional brain, the limbic system. Third trimester is the cortex, neocortex, which is more your your intelligent brain, put it that way. So you have your emotional brain, you have your survival brain, emotional brain, intelligent brain. Now, what's also important to understand is, sorry, excuse me, it's early in the morning for me here. Is we have a fourth part of our brain, which is the prefrontal cortex. And it's just here in the forehead behind the eyes. Now, this part of our brain starts to be developed after birth. So it's like the bonding process after birth starts to trigger the growth of this part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. Now, this part of the brain is super, super important for our feelings of compassion, our feelings of empathy, how we form relationships or don't form relationships, whether we have empathy or don't have empathy. So depending on those experiences, that's how the brain development goes. Now, that part of the brain, I believe, is either 9 months in development or 12 months. So even though it's being developed, it's not being operated, it's not being used, if you like. So the bonding process is really, really important in so many different ways, on so many different levels. But predominantly, it is that whole brain connection. When the baby's been held in mum's arms, mum's looking deep into baby's eyes, baby's looking deep into her eyes, then that's what stimulates the growth of that part of the brain. What tends to happen, I know you guys are in Canada, but can can I can I go towards circumcision? Is that okay to talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
Yeah,
circumcision?
sure.
All
Yeah,
right.
for sure.
Okay. So some people are like a little bit touchy about that subject. Um,
We have two
so
girls, so it's never
yeah,
been
you never
something
had
we've
to have
had to.
that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So about what I'm about to say will hopefully put a lot of people off of circumcising their babies, because it is an extremely, extremely traumatic experience for the baby, because the baby's fully conscious at the time. The baby's held down to have that procedure done. The baby doesn't understand what's happening to it, and it will feel very betrayed by mum um, when this is happening. And what it does is it leaves a lasting imprint on the emotional brain. It goes, straight in, and you can see the brain damage, if you like. And it also, of course, the prefrontal cortex. We've just spoken about that. So what will happen is, because the circumcision's done so early on, that part of the brain development gets influenced by the experience that the baby's having. So if the baby's under extreme pain, a trauma, it's beyond pain. It's just beyond pain. A lot of babies either throw up, pass out, or just shut down. And the scientific studies have shown, if you do a brain scan of the baby, the brain's kind of like acting normally before the circumcision begins. The circumcision happens and all the brain lights up like, ah, and then the brain just shuts down. And sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, Dr. Gabor Mate also talks about this
Okay,
actually as
yes.
well. Yeah.
Yes. So then it takes weeks and weeks and weeks for that brain function to come back online again. It comes on bit by bit by bit. So people will probably find that their baby's either highly agitated or highly shut down after that experience, and it will take a while for the brain to come back online, and it never comes back on the same.
Mhm.
So my theory is that most of, especially the men that have been circumcised, are usually the guys that end up being, with the labels of narcissism, because all narcissism is that inability to have empathy for another person, right?
Right.
So
Right.
if that part of the brain is underdeveloped or developed in the wrong way, I'm not quite sure whether it's an underdevelopment or just it's just shut off. The ability to have empathy for somebody else, compassion for somebody else, that part is just not developed in the brain, and that's what creates narcissism.
Right. Well, there's so many different directions I want to talk about,
Yeah.
like dad's role at all. Like there's so many different things. I do want to just be conscious of knowing that we want to get to just the teens' understanding of the second
Okay.
changes in the brains when
Well,
they're, getting ready to leave for home. So whatever we need to know in all of this, but I think that I have so many questions.
alrighty. So, how long have we got?
Probably another 20 minutes, half hour at the most.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would like to talk about the effects of birth, and
Yep.
then we'll go to the teens.
Sure.
So we've kind of discovered that how our in utero time affects us, and it doesn't just affect us mentally, it affects us physically as well. So for instance, if mum experiences a separation while she's pregnant, it could be any form of separation from job, loss of a loved one, partner leaving, whatever the separation is, it's it's very likely that the baby is going to be physically affected by that as well as emotionally affected by that. So they could end up with eczema or asthma. Both the skin and the lungs are quite closely linked, especially if you look at them in forms of traditional Chinese medicine. So that experience of separation can lead to either skin issues or lung issues. And the same can be said for afterbirth as well. If you're not, if you're taken away from your baby for a period of time, then it will have an effect, and it may come out in the skin as in form of eczema, or it may come out in forms of separation anxiety, not wanting to be on your own, So, there's always you can't just say that it just affects somebody emotionally, because that also ends up with some physical experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
And going through the birth experience is also very impactful on our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Children that are born through elective C-section, if you like, are a little bit different to the people that are born through emergency C-section. Elective C-section babies don't get to start their birth. They don't get to, because it's the baby that initiates the start of the birth. They don't get to go through the birth canal, so they don't have that gentle squeezing as they come down the birth canal. They don't have the fluid pumped out of their lungs, so they have difficulty breathing when they first come out. So the elective C-section baby is like 1 minute in the womb, the next minute, somebody's cut a hole in the roof, and then they're pulling you out by your feet or your arms or your head or whatever, so you're being pulled out. And it means the baby's had no preparation time. So 1 minute they're in the womb, the next minute they're out. So those children will go on to maybe not be able to start projects because they never got to start their birth experience. They may, but they will, on a positive side, be able to assimilate information very quickly, because when they came out, they had to go, like, okay, I'm here, lights, sound, smell, like sound, action, I'm here, as opposed to that very gentle, coming through the birth canal experience. The emergency C-section babies get to start their labor. It's usually an emergency C-section because they've got stuck. So now just think about a baby in the womb. It can't move forwards, it can't move back, but it gets to start the birth process. In my own birth, I got to start my own process, and then my mum got shot up with pethidine, a narcotic drug. So 1 minute we were working together to be born, the next minute she's gone to sleep, and I'm having to do this journey on my own. Mm-hmm. So yeah, luckily I didn't get stuck, but if you do get stuck, these will be your children that will say start their homework, and then halfway through they get stuck, and they'll bring the homework to you going, I don't know what to do next, can you help me? Just little subtle things like that can, just be an indicator, and going through life, keep getting stuck and having to have other people pull you out of situations. Cord around the neck, again, you can't move forward, you can't move back, and now you're adding in that feeling of you're going to die because you're being strangled. Not every baby has that experience, just the ones where the cord gets really tight. So that to them is a near-death experience. Okay, so that means that they can maybe feel like they don't belong here, that they shouldn't be here. And it can lead on to that child, self-harming or not wanting to be here in the world. So there's so much to this. The psychology of birth is it's pretty big.
What about the one who 10 minutes ago the doctor said you're not having this baby, go home, and 10 minutes later it's there naturally?
Yeah.
Just really fast birth. Okay,
so fast birth people will usually rock up early to any events. I always know the early birth people, fast birth people, because they always turn up early at my workshop, and I always know the late birth people because they're always late.
Interesting.
Which were you?
I think I was born right when I was supposed to be, and I am right on time.
You hate being early, and you hate being late.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right on time.
There you go. But so interesting about your daughter. So she would. So okay. So I can. There could have been a couple of things happening. The fact that you get to. I'm assuming you got to the hospital and then they tried to send you home. Is that right?
They did. Yeah. And I was screaming at them. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And you're not being listened to.
Yeah.
Okay. So imagine the scenario for her. She's experienced this. Mum's screaming. Mum's getting frustrated because mum intuitively knows the baby's coming. And the doctors are saying, no, 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 go home, relax, your baby's not coming yet. So
So
for
then
her,
I started thinking she was dying. Either I was dying or she was dying, because I kept thinking, if I'm not having this baby, then what's happening? One of us is dying. Yeah.
okay,
It was terrible. It was terrible.
yes. So does she have either dreams about death or fear, not bigger than normal fear around death, or
No, she never mentions that. She has weird
no?
dreams, but more teenage
She is
goofiness.
more anxious about like needles and dentist, and
Okay,
she's not talked about anything. But
all right,
she was in distress when she was delivered.
Yeah.
okay, all right. So not being believed. I would imagine if there ever is a scenario where she's not being believed, that would probably make her quite angry.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, she does. That's absolutely true.
for sure.
And it's funny because I'm just thinking our second, we were at the hospital for hours and relaxed with her time.
Yeah,
That kid,
it's so laid back.
she doesn't need to be anywhere on time. She just kind of gets there when she gets there.
The doctors were so concerned
About the first one.
that from the first one was so fast that any contractions come in immediately. So we were there and they wouldn't let us leave all for a long time.
So we were far more relaxed. We were picking names and joking around, and it was way easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
So can you see how those two
Yeah.
different birth experiences, you've got two girls that have got totally different personalities, but both align with how their early life experience and their birth experience was.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. And my is like fast, right? Even how like she's a Hoover with eating.
Well, and she can't walk slow. Like she has to walk everywhere fast. Yeah, it's interesting.
It is interesting.
But you also said she was in distress when she came out. So she knew she had to get out quickly because there was something wrong.
Yeah.
All right. So that's why she has to do everything quickly.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway.
Lots to think about. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the bonding process. So you want to talk about your teenagers? Should we go there now?
Yeah, that same one is about to actually graduate high school. So
that's why we thought this would be an interesting one. So
she's about to transition right into
adulthood
at 17, not 18.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's good that you use that word transition, because the transitions are very important. So the transition from wherever it is source that we come from into conception, that's our first experience of transition. The next period of transition is birth. All right. So how those two transitions go, the pattern usually repeats for every other transition after that, going to kindergarten, going to school, going to university, going, college, university, job, marriage, going on holiday, whatever the transition is, it will either be a nice, smooth, slow transition like your second daughter birth was, and she'll transition, she'll just get her head around things slowly and just transition into the next stage, or it'll be a frantic, I've got to do this quickly, and it will be a high anxiety experience for your other daughter. So the reason why the bonding process is so important is because when we hit that teenage years, that's when the next phase of our brain development happens, and our next opportunity for bonding. Of course, we're always open to bonding. It doesn't matter, even us at our age, we can meet a friend and bond with them, just there's never a wrong time for bonding, but optimal time is straight after birth for that first 45 minutes. That is the optimal time for bonding. Now, when we hit teenage years, we start going through another bonding process. And this is in preparation for the child to leave the home, right? Because children aren't going to stay at home forever. So this transition from home to leaving home is a slow process. But it's usually kicked off with an experience of bonding. Now, I'll talk personally about myself. When I was 13, I met a guy, a young boy, same age as me. He looked like Legolas in Lord of the Rings, you know, the long blonde hair,
Yeah.
the elven face, the blue eyes.
Well, that's interesting.
I,
You guys were just talking
We
about
were just talking about
what's his name?
Orlando Bloom.
Yeah.
Orlando Bloom, exactly. So I was passionately, crazily in love with this guy. I was 13 years old, but it was like he was the love of my life. I couldn't function. You know, we were together for a whole 10 days, right? A whole 10 days. And it was bliss. And then it ended. And then we ended up getting back together again when I was 16, and we stayed together for a year. But that first love experience was so profound because nature's designed it that you need to start bonding with people outside the family. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, if you're, let's talk about teenage boys. Teenage boys, if they've not had a very good start in life, like their foundations are weren't very secure. Let's say, you know, mum didn't expect to get pregnant. Maybe she's in an abusive relationship. The birth trauma, you know, there was a lot of birth trauma. Baby, you know, no bonding process. You know, baby was fed and chucked back in the cot, and anyway, so that for the baby, they start withdrawing their desire to connect with this person, or they'll keep trying to connect, but they'll be too fearful to do it. But there'll be a lot of rage involved in that. They'll be feeling, you know, injustice and let down and nobody cares for me type feeling. And then they hit the teenage years and their hormones are going. So all of this like suppressed rage and anger they have, it starts to come up to the surface. And then they start like the brain's programming them to connect with groups of people or other people outside the family. So who are they going to choose? They're not going to choose the kids that have, you know, got a secure attachment and, you know, come from a loving family. They're going to be looking for people like themselves that have the same rage. Right. And that's why that's why you get these groups of teenage boys together who then want to go out and, you know, rob shops or do drugs or whatever it is. And for them, if you put yourself in their shoes, they go through this bonding process of, oh my God, I finally found my tribe, people who understand how I feel, people who understand my rage, people who understand that I've been rejected because they've also got that experience. And when you find somebody that you align with so perfectly like that, you fall in love. You know, it's not a kind of sexual love, but it is a connection love. Finally, somebody sees me, understands me. Whereas at home, you know, there's conflict. Nobody understands this child. Nobody understands why, as a young child, that child starts acting out because, you know, it's witnessing its parents, you know, constantly fighting and things like this. So this is how it's kind of like passed on. So for teenage girls, it's usually around, you know, boys and their friends. So if, you know, again, depending on their life experience, they will be looking for friends that feel similar to them because we all like to be with our tribe. We all like to be with people who understand us and get us. And unfortunately, like nowadays, you have social media. When I was a child, we didn't have social media. So it was only my small group, you know, circle of friends, either at school or in my neighborhood, that I could connect with. But now you have kids sitting at home on the computer, either gaming or social media. And, you know, there's all these temptations to be lured into all sorts of different things that they shouldn't be lured into. But they're more likely to be lured into that sort of world if they don't have that secure attachment or that connection with their parents.
And I see that so much. And I think it's just fueled by COVID, where people just and they're not even connecting. It's more scrolling, but there are, you know, there are some places where I find a lot of teenagers connect, but yeah, looking for that bonding.
Absolutely. But if you're listening to this, then there are ways of dealing with this, and you know, Dr. Gabor Mate's book, "Hold On to Your Kids," is a
Hold
really
on to
good
your
place
kids.
to
I was
start.
just gonna say, absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. And then working with perhaps somebody like myself. So how I work with people, I use, have you heard of the EFT or tapping, emotional freedom technique?
I've heard of it, but yeah, maybe explain it because you probably haven't.
Oh, nice. That was real smooth.
I like that.
I don't use
Oh
it.
yeah, no,
I've
I've heard of it, but for the layman here, yeah.
but other parents
No,
will.
that's true. No, please.
No, exactly. Alrighty, I like that. So the concept of EFT is you focus on a negative emotion or a negative belief, and you tap on the side of your hand. You state, like, even though I have this anger, and then you state the opposite. Or I choose to accept myself anyway, or I choose to love and accept myself anyway. So you state where you are. So we always have to acknowledge where we are before we can change where we are. We can't change where we are before we realize, oh my God, you have to be consciously aware of where you are. So that setup statement, even though I have this anger or I have this frustration or this fear, I love and accept myself anyway. And then you just tap around different meridian points at the top of the head, beginning of the eyebrow, side of the eye, under the nose, crease of the chin, and under the collarbones are the points that I generally use. And as you're tapping on the system, you're focusing in on the energy, the emotion, where in the body do you feel it, the anxiety, the fear, whatever it is, what color is it, what shape is it? And you keep tapping on that until the level of the emotion comes down. So that's a very simple form of EFT. Now, I trained with Carl Dawson in the UK, and he started to develop. So I started EFT in 2007, and around about 2008, 2009, he discovered matrix reimprinting, which is the concept where you take that tapping, but you do it more like inner child work. So you imagine in your mind, my client is the therapist for their younger self. So you literally are going back as you are now, working with your younger self. So, working with your baby self, your in utero self, your past life self, working with your ancestor, it's all the same thing. All the same concept is that by using the tapping, you're helping that younger version of yourself move through what they went through. Now, the concept is, you may be thinking, well, that's a bit weird because that event's happened and it's like in the past. So if I'm not going to go into quantum physics right now, but it comes from the idea of quantum physics that we are consciousness in a body. And when we have an experience, a trauma experience, we go, and that shock locks everything in that moment in time in place in what I call a trauma capsule. All right. So within that trauma capsule is trapped consciousness that went through that experience. So your younger self is almost like a real person because she's been held in space and time in this trauma capsule, who was feeling what she was feeling, seeing what she was seeing, hearing what she was hearing. So everything, all the information is trapped here. So by going back and working with your younger self, you're kind of going back to one of these trauma capsules and you're tapping on your younger self. You're helping her understand, because with a child's brain, we understand the world very differently to how we do with an adult brain. So children will come to some belief like, I'm not wanted, I'm not loved, I'm not good enough, through having a traumatic experience that confirms that that's true. So you go in there. Let me give you a good example. I worked with a lady who was an artist, and she was in fear of putting her work online. Right, I'm getting quite a few of these right now. They have this fear of putting themselves out in the world because they don't want to be seen. Right. She was such an incredible artist. It was a shame. It was a criminal that she wasn't being able to advertise her work because she was so good. So in the session, this feeling of putting I got her to imagine putting her stuff up online, and like it brought up all this anxiety. So when we followed the energy, so she felt this energy in let's say it's throat and chest. So we followed that energy back to see where it was created. And we went back to her 4-year-old self, she could see her sitting on the floor, drawing a picture. Right, and her dad sitting in the chair, and dad's watching his favorite football team on television, or soccer team for you guys over there. And she's drawing this picture, and she finishes the picture and she picks it up and she walks over to Dad to show him her picture that she's so proud of doing. In that moment, Dad's watching his football team and they've just lost. All right. And Dad goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe it," just explodes in anger because his team has lost. Now, this little 4-year-old is sharing a part of herself that she's put into this picture, and all of a sudden Dad's really angry and rejecting her. All right. She doesn't understand it's the football game. As a 4-year-old, she thinks, "Oh my God, my picture's not good enough. I've made Dad angry."
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
every time as an adult, she tried to put herself out there, her subconscious is going, "Oh, no, 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 don't do that. It's dangerous. Don't do that. It's dangerous. You're going to get shouted at. You're going to get punished if you put yourself out there." So it can be something as tiny as this that can set up, a lifetime fear until you actually go back in time, work with your younger self, tap on your younger self, and help her understand that no, Dad is just angry at his football team. Now, could you imagine being able to step back in time and say to your father, like, "You have just ruined your daughter's life"? Yeah. How is he going to feel? He's going to be devastated. He's going to be, "Oh my God, what have I done?" So the fun part about this work is that you can also tap on Dad, right? Tap on Dad for his anger, tap on his dad for this now feeling of, "Oh my God, I didn't recognize, I didn't acknowledge my child." So once you've released Dad's anger for him, he can now act differently, and he can say to his daughter, "Oh my God, what an amazing picture. You're so clever. You should share this with the world even." All right.
Mm-hmm.
And even though this is not reality, it feels real. When you're back in that time, you're recreating what should have happened. Right. We all, in any moment, we go back into the past, we recreate what happened, and it's not always exactly like it was meant to happen. But the important thing is that she now doesn't have that fear. She's not holding that fear of putting her work out into the world, because now she has the feeling that Dad's proud of her and that Dad's really happy that, she's producing this work.
Peter Levine talks a lot about, well, I mean, we know that trauma is held in the body, and
Yeah.
and he talks about how animals don't hold trauma, even if it's, a gazelle that was just attacked by a leopard, because they're able to play out their safety response from that trauma, like running away. They can finish that action, but we don't. We have brains and language, and we keep ourselves stuck usually with these narratives, with that language. And so we do have to kind of go back to those moments in time so we can play out that, be able to finish out some of that. So it kind of aligns with that. And there is, I mean, we know there's so much research just about how it's held in the body. So it is quite fascinating. It is quite fascinating.
Yeah.
But
So what I'm offering people is that opportunity to complete the trauma, to finish the trauma, to move through the trauma, but not only move through it, have a positive outcome. So when I'm working with people, for instance, on either their birth experience or working with women who have given birth, and sometimes the men are quite traumatized by that birth process as well. So I've worked with quite a few men. What we do is, let's say I was working with you for the birth of your first child, we would move through all the points of trauma. And normally for women, the biggest trauma is not the physical. Yes, you're in a lot of pain and a lot of physical things are happening to you. It's more the emotional, mental. It's more the, "I'm not believed. I'm not listened to. I feel powerless." Yeah, I don't trust these people, but I have to trust these people because I'm in this situation. It's normally the emotional, mental. So what we do is we work through all the different points of trauma. And then once we've done that, we go back and we do the birth how it should have been, including the bonding process.
amazing.
I did this for a lady who was absolutely terrified of giving birth to her third child. I call her name is Caroline, but I also call her Chapter 1 because she's Chapter 1 in my book. And she was terrified of giving birth to her third baby because the first two birth experiences had been so traumatic. She'd given birth to the first boy in hospital, had medical intervention she didn't want. It was a long labor, extremely painful, and she had trouble breastfeeding afterwards. So we went back in time and we worked through all the different points of trauma. The biggest point of trauma was her loss of faith in her midwife, because she ended up with an epidural that she didn't actually need one, but the midwife kind of lied to her. So that was her big point there of trauma. We went back to her own birth experience in the session, and she discovered that her mum had the same fear as she did giving birth. And not only do you work on her mum, but you also work on baby Caroline in utero as well.
Right.
And once the birth process had happened, we were about to what we call re-imprint that. You flood the body with those good feeling emotions of a positive outcome. But she suddenly started getting this anxiety in her chest. And it's like, okay, where's this coming from? And she says, oh, gosh, yeah. She said, I had to stay into hospital for 2 weeks after I was born because I had yellow jaundice. She said, so mum would feed me during the day and be with me during the day, but at night she had to go home. So the nurses would feed her the breast milk that her mum had expressed for, or that Caroline had, her mum had expressed for her. So her trauma, her separation anxiety trauma, was mum going home every night and leaving her on her own with the nurses. So we worked on her baby self to help her understand why mum had to go home and leave her. And we asked the baby, what would you like to do? Now, in my mind, my baby self would have gone, well, go home with mum. But her baby self just wanted an angel to come in and take care of her at night. And this angel was actually what Caroline chose to come in and assist with her birth. So that healed her separation anxiety. We then went to her second son's birth and healed that. And then we did what I now call a future re-imprinting, where we showed the baby in utero how the birth was going to be in the future.
Well,
And
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I just give you the outcome really quickly?
Yes,
for sure.
Yes. The outcome was her separation anxiety went away. Her husband was a professional footballer, so every time he went to go away, she would incite an argument with him. Didn't understand why she did that. And she noticed after we did the session that she was no longer having to fight with her husband every time he was going away, because that was re-triggering her experience of mum leaving her as a baby. Her second son, who had a neck issue, that went away because he was twisted. The midwife twisted him to try and get him out, which left a neck injury. And the birth experience was exactly how she showed the baby it was going to be. Like peaceful birth, natural birth, no medical intervention, no problem breastfeeding, very happy baby. And that was the point where I went, this is where I want, this is exciting. Now I'm really excited. Now I want to specialize in, not just working with trauma, but I want to specialize in birth trauma. And that's when, I got to hear about Joseph Chilton Pierce and Suzanne Arms and, all the big natural birth advocates. That's how and then I started to study and, people like Peter Levine and Gabor Mate. So.
Well, yeah, I wish I met you, 19 years ago, just because, and I'm sure there's patterns too, because I know my mother had a very traumatic delivery with me as well. So, but anyways, fascinating. I wish we had more time to talk, because I think that there's so many amazing things. And I think part 2 should be us talking about hold on to your children, because those are things, just that parents can do in the meantime. But it was wonderful chatting with you. For people who are looking to reach out, I do have all your information and I'll put it in the show notes, but people who are listening right now, and if they want to reach out, where's the best place to reach you?
Probably my website, magicalnewbeginnings.com. I'm also quite active on Facebook as well. I think if I didn't send you the link, I'll send you the link for that. But those are the 2 best places. I do want to start podcasting my own podcast shows myself in the future. So maybe I can invite you to come and join me, and you get to do the majority of the talking.
Sure. I love talking about this kind of stuff. Fascinating. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.